afternoon. The Embassy of India conducted several activities as part of celebration of 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi during the last 2 years. As part of the celebration, we approached Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna, who is an internationally acclaimed speaker on Mahatma Gandhi, to conduct Gandhi Katha for Ethiopia. She accepted our request despite being extremely busy, and we are immensely thankful to her for sparing her valuable time for this Gandhi Katha. I firmly believe that the Gandhi Katha will be widely listened by not only the Indian community of Ethiopia, but also our Ethiopian friends who have a great respect for Mahatma Gandhi, and thus the message and philosophy of Gandhiji will further disseminate it. I would also like to mention that this event would be the last event for this historic celebration on part of the embassy. Thank you, Dr. Shobhana Radhakrishna.
Thank you, Charge d'Affaires, H.E. Shri Mohanlal ji, for your kind message and the support. Namaskar and welcome to the Gandhi Katha, story of Mahatma Gandhi narrated by me as we enter the culmination of the commemoration of this historic event of the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. I express gratitude to the Embassy of India in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, for hosting Gandhi Katha amidst these challenging times to learn from Gandhiji's philosophy of truth, non-violence, and purity of means, his spirituality, his environmental credo, and his practices of health and wellness of body, mind, and spirit for coping up and staying safe physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually during and after the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic, which has affected the entire humanity. 2 days ago, on October 2nd, the world celebrated the UN International Day of Nonviolence, and in India, we celebrated Mahatma Gandhi's birth anniversary as Gandhi Jayanti. The entire world is remembering Mahatma Gandhi, the apostle of peace and nonviolence. We have an opportunity to remind the humanity of the efficacy of the messages of Mahatma Gandhi, the father of our nation. I pay my respects to the leading lights of Ethiopia, the Ethiopians, and the Indian community, and all those who have joined me online today. Ethiopia, famous world runner and the former world champion, Haile Gebrselassie, wrote in Gandhi Anthology in 2019, and I quote some excerpts from his article. I drew inspiration from Gandhi's will not to give up. It was a constant reminder in my mind that many used to laugh at Gandhi and his vision of getting India freedom by sticking to his non-violent vision. But he proved them all wrong in the end. His simplicity in life, whether it came to living in a simple house, wearing the most basic garments, and washing clothes, have had a profound influence on me. India's relations with Ethiopia have been traditionally close and friendly. Ethiopia has been appreciative of the fact that India has never been hostile to Ethiopia's interest. Ethiopia had been consistent in her support for India in the international fora on various issues. Historical linkages between India and Ethiopia go back about 2000 years of recorded history. Indian traders traded silk and spices for gold and ivory through the ancient port of Adulis in the 6th century AD. Mahatma Gandhi had begun his protest journey in South Africa, making an indelible mark on the times and the world history. Many great African countries such as South Africa, Tanzania, Zimbabwe, Namibia, Zambia, Kenya, and Ghana got freedom from European colonial regimes after a long struggle and freedom movements which followed the path shown by Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhian ways had steeped deeply among them, and percolated down to the people in all the African countries, which attained freedom by following his steps. Mahatma Gandhi drew inspiration not only from his experiences in South Africa, but also from his reading of the history of Africa as a whole. Thus, we observe that during the entire nonviolent freedom struggle of Mahatma Gandhi in India, Africa was dominant in his mind as his early struggle for equality was initiated in Africa. Gandhi Katha is based on the ancient Indian oral tradition of Katha or storytelling with hymns and narration. I have given talks on Gandhi Katha in more than 108 countries, hosted by the respective Indian missions. In all the countries, people have great reverence and respect for Mahatma Gandhi. Many have been inspired by him to take up the cudgels against injustice through nonviolence. Others have followed his environmental credo, and still others have been deeply touched by his simple, frugal, spiritual life. The new generation is eager to understand more about the greatest man of the last century who made such a huge impact on humanity and inspired many world leaders. Millions of people have been inspired by Gandhiji in the past and in the present as well. Madiba, Nelson Mandela, who was often dubbed as the Gandhi of South Africa, had strong Indian connections and striking similarities with India's father of the nation. The anti apartheid icon, Madiba had said, and I quote, "The Mahatma is an integral part of our history because it is here that he first experimented with truth, here that he demonstrated his characteristic firmness in pursuit of justice, here that he developed Satyagraha as a philosophy and as a method of struggle." Mahatma Gandhi used to start and end his day with prayers in the ashrams that he had set up. Every activity and program used to begin and end with prayers, in which prayers from all the religions were sung. Sarva Dharma Prarthana. Gandhiji's internal core comprised of the essence of all the religions, one that he had acquired from long study and reflection. The devotional poetry of the saint poets that he had heard, sung, and absorbed since childhood made up a significant part of the life of his soul. He said that ultimately all the religions point to the same truth of compassion, love, forgiveness, and tolerance, and that everyone must study the essence of all the religions in an attitude of perfect reverence and must have friendship and respect for the practitioners of different religions and diverse cultures. All of Gandhiji's friends were from different religions and cultural backgrounds from around the world, and he actively encouraged friendships across religions. One of Mahatma Gandhi's legacies to the world is nonviolent conflict resolution through interfaith dialogues for establishing brotherhood, unity, and harmony. In the ashram prayers in the morning and evening, the first verse from the Ishopanishad, the shortest Upanishad from our civilization, used to be recited. Isha sarvam yat kincha jagatyan jagat tena tyaktena bhunjitha ma gradha kasya svidhanam. That everything in this universe belongs to God. Nothing really belongs to us. Enjoy the objects of the world in an attitude of perfect non attachment. Enjoy it with a feeling of sacrifice, taking to the extent that is necessary for us, and leave the rest for others in the society. Never ever crave the possession of others. Nothing really belongs to us. Now I will play the Gandhi Katha hymn, which explains this same sentiment of renounce and rejoice, which is the essence of Indian civilization in the form of a song. And Gandhiji lived according to this essence of Indian civilization, of renounce and rejoice, and the central messages of the Bhagavad Gita selflessly without attachment and possession.
नायः तेरा नायः मेरा नायः तेरा नायः मेरा ईश्वर का यह राज है ईश्वर का यह राज है ईश्वर का जल ईश्वर का फल ईश्वर का जल ईश्वर का फल ईश्वर का ही राज है ईश्वर का ही राज है नायः तेरा नायः मेरा नायः तेरा नायः मेरा ईश्वर का यह राज है ईश्वर का यह राज है ईश्वर का जल ईश्वर का फल ईश्वर का जल ईश्वर का फल ईश्वर का ही राज है ईश्वर का ही राज है
Even though 7 decades have gone by since Gandhiji passed on, in every part of the world, his resonance is felt as strongly as ever before, and his visions and actions are of enduring significance for all times and places. His approach to life was holistic and cannot be divided into watertight compartments of social, religious, political, public, or personal life. Gandhiji stands out as the champion not only of political democracy but also of economic and spiritual democracy in today's world. He believed that moral degeneration is the root cause of all evils, including conflicts. This explains his lifelong crusade of attainment of moral values such as truthfulness, nonviolence, purity of means, love, self control, respect, forgiveness, friendliness, compassion, mercy, and so on. For Gandhiji, the principle of Satyagraha, or non-violent resistance or civil disobedience, was by non cooperation with evil through the moral values of love force, truth force, and soul force through suffering and self sacrifice. For him, the consideration for the suffering of fellow human beings was of paramount importance. His belief and actions were that the social change for establishing justice and dignity of humans is both less harmful and more sustainable when achieved by nonviolent means stands true even today. His legacy of Satyagraha is widely practiced, worldwide recognized, and is seen in many moments for civil rights in the contemporary world. His environmental practices were based on conservation of natural resources, which were often misused and overused for the sake of development. Gandhiji's environmental credo was of recycling, reducing, refusing, and reusing, and living as frugally as one can. Gandhiji had warned about the unsustainability on the global scale almost a century ago and said that greed will be the main reason for the environmental degradation and the ecological crisis. He had famously said that the earth has enough for man's needs, but not for man's greed, much before the world was preoccupied by the concerns of environment and ecology. Mahatma Gandhi, the first environmentalist, had already practiced, put it into action, and also warned the world. He had said, "The earth, the air, the land, and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children. So we have to hand it over to them as it was handed over to us." Equality for women within the society was a principle Gandhiji passionately believed in. His vision of Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, becomes very relevant in the crisis of internally displaced people and migrants. He may well have kept in mind the very basic unit of human organization, a village, or a county. His vision of Gram Swaraj, which is a self reliant, independent, self governed village built on the premises of sustainable development and growth, is the need of the hour. Perhaps the greatest source of strength for Mahatma Gandhi was in his faith in God. Truth was the deepest and the most complete form of God. The faith gave him the constant awareness that he was to be nothing but an instrument in his hands. He was to go wherever he was led. For him, the guidance of God constituted two things. One, he had to walk on the path enlightened by truth that was available to him in whatever measures and form. On that path, hundreds of leaders before him had already walked. Two, he had to constantly gaze inwards and find inspiration through self introspection, self examination, and self purification. And this he did by repeated questioning. And that question was Ko Aham, who am I? What am I? And what is the real purpose of my life? This question has been asked in our ancient Indian civilization since the past 5,000 years. The answer came to Gandhiji as he listened to his inner voice that the real purpose of life was to serve others. The deeper the faith, the greater was the endeavor for Mahatma Gandhi. He said truth is God. Faith in truth led Mahatma Gandhi to two other realizations. If God is omnipresent, then truth is omnipresent too. If each human being were an aspect of God, then each person is capable of being truthful, of being good, and doing good to others. The second realization was that in spite of all the upheavals in the history of humankind, humanity will only progress in an auspicious direction because truth, that is God, is only interested in the welfare of its creation. His endeavor throughout his life was devoted to the search of that element of truth, to awaken it and to nurture it. That is why he could feel oneness with everyone. For most of us, this realization does not set in easily. But because of this understanding of oneness, Gandhiji had no enemies. He did not want to settle scores with anyone and he did not want to take any revenge. He merely wanted to extend his love, compassion, and respect to everyone, and that was his main trait. He respected individuals as individuals, and that was another trait that we see in Gandhiji. And like this, there are many traits which we can see in him and learn from him. Romeo Rolla, the famous French writer and pacifist who won the Nobel Prize for Literature, wrote the biography of Mahatma Gandhi in 1924, and that brought Mahatma Gandhi to the attention of the Western world. In 1931, Gandhiji came to meet him in Switzerland and spent 5 days with him discussing many important aspects. After he went, he wrote a letter to his American friend, and I quote some excerpts from that letter. This little man is so fragile in appearance, is tireless, and fatigue is a word that does not exist in his vocabulary. He could calmly answer for hours without a muscle of face twitching. His mind proceeds through successive experiments into action, and he follows a straight line, but he never stops. Now I will play a Gandhi Katha hymn in Hindi that elaborates on Gandhiji's definition of truth as having harmony between thought, word, and deed.
मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू खोल जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू खोल ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान ज्ञान कर्म भक्ति का हो सम्यक विधान सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा सत्य शिव सुंदर का सुमधुर होगा मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल मन वाणी कर्म में सत्य ही तू बोल जीवन में मंगल के द्वार दे तू बोल जीवन
Time magazine had listed out three most important protests over 190 years. The first one was the Boston Tea Party. The second one was Dandi March or the Salt Satyagraha. And the third one was the March of Washington. We can see a common thread. The first and second were against the same company, the East India Company. There is a common thread of non-violence in all three. In 1930, with a pinch of salt,
that Gandhi's views were
in 1930, with a pinch of salt, Mahatma Gandhi shook the world. He started out on 12th March from his Sabarmati ashram in Ahmedabad in Gujarat for Dandi seashore with 79 fellow marchers. Walked for 24 days, walking 10 miles a day, stopped at 48 villages, gave speeches in the morning and evening to mobilize people to participate in the salt satyagraha and the non-cooperation movement, covered 241 miles till he reached Dandi seashore on 5th of April 1930. In the early hours of the morning of 6th April, when he bent down to pick up a fistful of muddy lump of earth with salt, 100,000 people joined him. And as the salt satyagraha progressed, 300,000 people broke the salt law all over India. 1,362 newspapers covered the news worldwide. William Lawrence Shearer, the American journalist, was present during the salt satyagraha, and his graphic reporting about the brutalities and barbarities of the British government brought the incidents to the notice of the world. And they woke up to the power of satyagraha and non-violence. So Mahatma Gandhi remains the most powerful global brand ambassador of nonviolence, a youth icon who opposed all forms of injustice, an apostle of peace and nonviolence, a man whose values can make the world a better place. In 1904, in South Africa, after reading John Ruskin's book Unto This Last, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi transformed his life overnight and started leading a community life of self control, voluntary poverty, bread labor, and Sarvodaya, the welfare of all. He established four ashrams in his lifetime: two in South Africa called Phoenix Settlement in 1904 and Tolstoy Farm in 1910, and two ashrams in India, Sabarmati Ashram in Ahmedabad, Gujarat in 1917 and Sevagram Ashram in Wardha, Maharashtra in 1936. Here, Kasturba Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, and the ashram community lived in poverty like the common villagers of India. This was his ideal of a non-violent face-to-face society for Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, and carrying out constructive programs, which is his second gift to humanity. The first gift being Satyagraha. Gandhiji's ashrams had a mingling of political and spiritual aims. It was a practical laboratory for transforming ordinary men and women into extraordinary seekers and satyagrahis, for offering the highest sacrifice of their lives in the non-violent freedom struggle on one hand, and to get involved in constructive programs to serve the poorest of the poor by establishing their self-respect and dignity. I'm happy to inform you that I was born in his last ashram in Sevagram. My father was inspired by Gandhiji since his childhood and joined the non-violent freedom struggle and lived in the ashrams. I would like to tell you that for the children of the ashram, Gandhiji was not the great Mahatma Gandhi, nor even the political leader Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, not even the Bapu or the father of the ashram. For them, he was just a friend with whom they could swim, they could eat, they could play, they could put up a play, and a friend with whom they could quarrel without qualms. And only a friend, it's only a friend who always stands by you, who will always be there for you, and with whom you can fight without any problem. So, Gandhiji gave such kind of love and friendship to children who were 56 years younger than him, because he treated individuals or children as individuals and gave them respect and love. But it was not only meant for children, it transcended the border of the ashram to the entire community in the ashram as well as in India, and crossed the borders of the country and spread everywhere. The life and thoughts of Mahatma Gandhi are intertwined and inseparable. His politics was imbued with his spiritual experiments, and his spirituality was tempered by his vision of a non-violent society, and his constructive program was integral to his politics. The unique practices of Mahatma Gandhi, his control of palate, his fast, his spinning, his silence, and his prayers gave him the internal strength and were as much a part of his politics as of his spiritual life. Gandhiji carried out all his experiments in health and wellness in the ashrams through nature cure, diet control, vegetarianism, fasting, hydrotherapy, sunbath, mud packs, and observing silence for one whole day. The ashram community not only participated but modified and validated these practices and still continues to practice till this day. And that points to the relevance of these practices. Our friend and the British Quaker, Sir Horace Alexander, had spent quite a few days in the ashram in India, and he observed that the ashram bell used to ring 56 times during the day. He said, and I quote, Gandhi had wonderful courtesy and punctuality. I was to learn quickly that he was the slave of watch. He had more to do in every 24 hours than almost any other man. So he had learned how to pack the most into every minute. Yet he never gave the impression of being hurried and impatient. So Gandhiji stands before us as the role model of punctuality, discipline, and promptness. And this is what all of us need to learn. Ivan Illich, the Croatian Austrian philosopher, had come to Sevagram Ashram in 1978 and spent a week there. Every day he used to sit in Bapu Kuti or Gandhiji's cottage, which was a very simple structure made of locally available material like bamboo, mud, and palm leaves. And he said, and I quote, this hut of Mahatma Gandhi demonstrates to the world how the dignity of the common man can be brought up. It is also a symbol of happiness which we can derive from practicing the principles of simplicity, service, and truthfulness. Now I will play the Gandhi Katha hymn, which explains Gandhiji's philosophy of truth is God, Satya hi Parameshwar.
आँखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आँखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, सत्य ही है परमेश्वर बापू का बोल, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, उसी परमेश्वर की नित्य कर तू शोध, आँखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, आँखें पवित्र राख सत्य ही तू बोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल, ईश्वर साक्षात होंगे अंतर टटोल।
Though Gandhiji's role and contributions to the political arena are well known, what is less known are his contributions towards health and well-being and nature cure. Gandhiji was a firm believer in the principle that a healthy mind keeps the body healthy, and he stressed the importance of a healthy lifestyle and positive thinking. His interest in health, hygiene, nutrition, and diseases was as great as his interest in politics. He insisted that adopting preventive measures for diseases was better than treatment. He also said that it was important to focus on cleanliness, a controlled diet, and an exercise regimen, and that it was best to avoid overconsumption of medicines. He was also a firm believer and practitioner of nature cure and conducted experiments related to diet and fasting from a very young age. He always believed that it was important to understand what caused diseases and then remove that very cause, rather than falling ill again and again and then attempting to treat it with excessive medication. He was essentially a man of science. He approached problems in a scientific manner. Mahatma Gandhi's message to the world on the vital question of health and well being is very important. To him, the study of this question was part of the service to God and His creation, which was his mission. Knowing to care summed up his life. His message was simple and easy to follow. It encouraged everyone to respect simplicity, voluntary self control, reduce the wants, follow the tradition, cultural practices, values, the environmental credo, and treat oneself through nature cure for living in harmony with nature. He also said that our lifestyle should be such that it should not let any disease come anywhere near us, and every person is responsible for looking after his or her body, mind, and spirit impeccably. He told everyone that in order for keeping physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy, we should have perfect understanding of our bodies, which is made up of the five elements that are found in nature. And that has what has been told to us by our ancient seers and sages of India. And these five elements are air, water, fire, earth, and space. For the wellness of our bodies, the balance and harmony between all these five elements is necessary. For Gandhiji, the outside universe was but a reflection of the inside universe. He repeated time and again that the universe is compressed in the atom. There is not one law for the atom and another for the universe. It was based on his actual spiritual experience that gave him the conviction that the moral principles have no meaning unless they can be made to serve as the guide of conduct in the daily affairs of men. There is a Sanskrit proverb, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. You are the universe within the universe. As with the self, so is the universe. What is going on within you is same as what is going on in the universe. From the mind body perspective, Gandhiji's standpoint was that health is an optimal integration of body, mind, spirit, soul, and environment. Environment is our extended body. And the nice Vedic expression from the wisdom traditions of India says, as is the atom, so is the universe. As is the microcosm, so is the macrocosm. As is the universal body, so is the cosmic body. As is the universal mind, so is the cosmic mind. Dr. Sherwood Eddy was a leading American Protestant missionary, a prolific writer, and an educator who visited Mahatma Gandhi in the Sabarmati ashram in 1929 and wrote that Gandhiji's bodily presence is like that of Apostle Paul or Socrates. He wrote, and I quote, he impressed us as the most childlike, the most transparent, the most lovable of man. His whole character is centered in his unique passion in truth and reality. Very few people know that as a couple, Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi contributed immensely 123 years ago to the public health emergencies, working as frontline health workers in all the disasters as selflessly as they could and in the service of humanity, both in South Africa as well as in India. In the Spanish influenza pandemic of 1918, Gandhiji opened up his Sabarmati ashram as a quarantine center and treated and served patients through nature cure, provided simple vegetarian diet to boost immunity, and maintained physical distancing. Gandhiji and Kasturba Gandhi took care of the families of the patients, looked after their physical, mental, and spiritual needs, and gave them correct information, helped them in remaining positive through prayer, meditation, and recitation of Ramanama, and taking care of each other during the time of the pandemic. Gandhiji said on 10th November 1918, our ancestors could build such tough bodies in the past, but today we are reduced to a state of miserable weakness and are easily infected by noxious germs moving about in the air. There is one and only one really effective way by which we can save ourselves from them, even in our present broken state of health. That way is the way of self-restraint, sanyam, or of imposing a limit on our acts, wants, and desires. In August 1942, Gandhiji wrote the book Key to Health, in which he wrote that anyone who observes the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will not need to knock at the doors of doctors or Vaidyas or the traditional health practitioners from day to day. Today, the world is facing three kinds of crises globally. First is the COVID 19 pandemic. The second is the serious and long drawn financial crisis. And the third one is the ecological crisis, which has impacted everyone. We have to look for answers somewhere within ourselves by learning from the life of Mahatma Gandhi, who had said, "My life is my message." The lesson the pandemic is teaching us is simple. When one member of the family falls sick, the entire family is affected, and soon the community is affected, the nation is affected, and then other communities in other nations in this globalized world. The well being of one individual has an impact on people on the other side of the globe. This is true of every action of ours. What we eat, what we buy, what we think, and what we do has reverberations and repercussions on all life on earth. It is this anubandha, this interconnectedness, that sustains all life on earth. We are all in this together as one human family, as brothers and sisters. Whether we choose to see it or not, we only have one home, this planet Earth, our Mother Earth. Our ancient sages and seers have always looked upon us as Vishwamanava, global citizens, and said that the world is one family. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. The current COVID 19 pandemic is a wake up call for every country, big or small, rich or poor, developed or developing. It has opened our eyes to the fragility of the existence of humans. We will have to learn to live with COVID 19 now and in the future as well. Instead of reinventing a new lifestyle, we just have to get inspired from the life of Gandhiji to make the necessary changes in thought, action, and conduct for coping up physically, mentally, and spiritually. And this is the future that the coronavirus COVID 19 pandemic is pointing out to us if we observe carefully. When a crisis makes you feel stressed, meditation, prayer, and chanting relieve the stress response. Fear and anxiety are forms of stress that become exaggerated when events become uncertain, when you feel a loss of control over the situation, and when the stress keeps repeating itself without let up. The thinking mind reacts to all of these conditions. It always has, even in normal times. But a crisis brings stress into high relief, making it very capable of lowering the immune systems of our bodies and causing inflammatory diseases. Decades ago, stress was classified as epidemic of modern life. The Gandhian way of life is the best guide to practicing the coping mechanism that induces relaxation, calmness, fearlessness, inner peace, absence of anxiety, and remaining positive. Therefore, he comes across as the greatest healer and the lifestyle guru or wellness guru who is available through his writings, through his conduct, through his action. The Gandhian principles of freedom from fear and care for all is a perfect prescription in these times of crisis. Gandhiji's emphasis on healthy lifestyle, positive thinking, empowerment for self care and care in the community would make perfect sense in these times. I once again take this opportunity to thank the Indian Mission for hosting the Gandhi Katha. My special thanks are to all of you who have joined me online. I will end with the peace benediction in Sanskrit for the universal welfare. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhina Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschit Dukha Bhag Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Let all be happy. Let all be healthy. Let all experience auspiciousness. Let no one be overwhelmed by grief. Om, peace, peace, peace. With Gandhiji's blessings, who had said that peace is the only positive force which will lead us from darkness towards light, I will end today's Gandhi Katha with the hymn Shubha Mangal Ho. May they be auspicious good. May they be good. May the earth be auspicious. May the sky be auspicious. May every particle on earth be auspicious.
मंगल हो शुभ